Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. The Big Ten Power Rankings are here. We took a deep dive into almost all these Big Ten programs. The boys are ready to stack them. Now, before we even get into it, this is inherently, it's going to get some fans hot. We got a lot of Big Ten fans that listen. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. Stack your rankings below. That's the beauty of college football. We got some Ohio State listeners, and they're probably going to give us some. They're going to let us hear it. We got a lot of Penn State listeners. They're going to let us hear it. Let us hear it in the comments section. That's what college football is about. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. And, of course, if you do enjoy the talk, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Almost 7,000 subscribers of college football fans. That's absolutely awesome. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. And, Dill, I'm going to kick this one off here. Let's start at the top. Where are we going?
No, I want to, as a Michigan guy,
Come on.
I want to puff my chest and say, "Oh, Michigan runs this conference. It's our show, whatever." But until Ohio State goes away, you can't discount them and say they aren't right up there. And you almost got to just smash them right on top of each other and say,
100%.
I mean, I'm sure Ohio State fans are still saying this is our show. You got to.
Well, I mean, they totally wouldn't be lying too. It's they dominated this conference for years, and I'd be lying as a Michigan fan if there's not a little scar tissue there. My whole childhood was taking losses. But when it comes down to looking at the team, stacking these teams, Michigan does return almost that whole team from last year. Ohio State, some question marks on Twitter. A lot of Devin Brown buzz as QB1 for Ohio State. We'll see how that plays out. But I just feel like you have less questions about this Michigan team than you do this Ohio State team. At the end of the day, this Ohio State team, we were starting to do our Big Ten, all Big Ten teams. Half of that Ohio State defense. Yeah, it's pretty much exclusively Ohio State. This team, Ohio State, is very
they're
good.
always going to be there. It's
100%.
Whatever. Yeah, they lost CJ Stroud, but this is a good team. But yeah, I'm good with saying Michigan's again, they're just returning so much from a team that obviously did beat Ohio State and Columbus last year.
And I would stack, you asked me to stack national rankings. I'm probably going Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3. That is how close I think these two teams are. And so it's going to be another battle. You got that feeling again that this conference is going to come down to late November in the game. Now, I do want to say, for Michigan and Ohio State fans that think that it's only Michigan, Ohio State, we took our deep dive into Penn State. And this Penn State team is the real deal. I wouldn't put them, I don't know if I'm giving them the edge on Michigan, Ohio State. But you look at what this Penn State can be in 2023. I think maybe the best defense in the conference on the defensive side of the ball, a dominant offensive line, a very good run game. And then you got Big Drew coming in that, he has a higher ceiling than Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford was a plus quarterback in the Big Ten. Drew's different. You talk about NFL level caliber arm, and the best recipe for a young quarterback is to have a great offensive line and a good run game, and they're certainly going to have that. They're certainly in this tier.
If they had really good quarterback play in each of the last 2 years, they beat Michigan in 21 and they probably beat Ohio State last year. That I don't think it's an unfair statement to say. I mean, Sean Clifford, again, a solid Big Ten quarterback, but he wasn't really at the top of the conference by any means. And if Drew Allar kind of comes in and is the guy we think he is and lives up to his recruiting ranking and all that talent, yeah, they're going to be a huge problem because everywhere else, Penn State is I think they're awfully close to where Michigan and Ohio State are in terms of talent and being able to play across the board. You just look, they're physically, they're right there. And I think these three teams, frankly, have a pretty wide margin between the next crop.
I agree with that. And we said about this Penn State team last year, this 2023 year is going to be special if they get some of these guys back. And they got Olaf Shanu would have been a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, decides to come back. This is a really talented group. And if Drew can take that step, they're right up there with Michigan, Ohio State. And as much as a Michigan fan, I'm sure Ohio State fans want to just look forward to the end of November. You got to be on your P's and Q's when you play this Penn State team. That's comfortably the three elite teams in the Big Ten. I think all three of these teams are top 10 teams in the country. And then, Dill, this is where the chaos begins. Once you start getting into the Big Ten West, you could Dill, we've talked about this a lot. 2 weeks ago, my rankings were different. And I could wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm an Illinois guy now. Dill, I'm going to ask you, right now, we got a month left to the season starts, about where are we heading with the number 4 team in this conference?
I frankly am probably a little closer to like settled in my mind. I think Illinois is the truth. I think when you can play that physical, that good a defense, run the ball the
I
way they
love it.
can, and I love Luke Altmaier coming in. I think he adds a little bit more explosive potential for that offense alongside a really pretty solid crop of wideouts. I think with this team having the continuity they have compared to Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, like those two teams I kind of have in my next crop, if you will. But I just think, like, again, bringing back Bielema, they kind of have their system in place, unlike those other three teams. I think they're comfortably, to me,
You
that
know what Illinois' identity is going to be, and they arguably have the best front seven in the Big Ten. I mean,
like
the
we
guys
need
like
to make
Johnny,
a lot of assumptions about guys like Cade McNamara and the new coaching staffs in
100%.
Wisconsin, in Nebraska. So I think you don't have to make much assumption about what this Minnesota or Illinois team is going to be. They're going to be
You're
rock
getting all
solid.
jumbled in the Big Ten West will do that to you.
That's
The
pretty
Big
much how they have me. So it's not totally
Big Ten West got the boys in a little bit of a pretzel. I love it. I mean, Dill, do you remember 10 months ago, the Illinois fans were at your throats. And
I was an idiot. I was such a hater.
we got to that Illinois Iowa preview, and I picked Illinois, and you picked Iowa, and you were calling me an idiot. Like, this Illinois team, it's not sexy what they do, but in terms of being one of the best teams in the trenches, like and you said it best. You know what Illinois is gonna be. You can't say that for a lot of these other Big Ten West teams. Dill, after Illinois, I think I do agree with you there. Where are we going next in the Big Ten West?
I think I have Wisconsin, but it's razor tight with Wisconsin and Iowa. Essentially, two teams that are trying to do the exact same thing. And I don't like that Iowa brought back Brian Ferentz. I just don't see how he can be the offensive coordinator of this football team, given what he's done.
Hey, if he doesn't score, 25? There's a number in the contract.
I know, but like it's just like that was a fireable offense what he did last year, 100%.
For the last couple of years.
It doesn't smell right. It doesn't sit well with me. For that reason, I probably have Wisconsin next, but Iowa did give it their shot to revamp this team, bringing Cade and some weapons like Eric Allenburden.
Yeah, I think I'm with that. I think I'd go Wisco, Illinois, and I mean, dude, like they couldn't have done a better job. I'm such a fan of what Luke Fickell's done with this program, bringing in Phil Longo. And you watch the spring game, like Tanner Mordecai had some growing pains, but he's a very experienced player in that scheme, that kind of air raid, spread him out scheme. But you saw, like when we watched that Wisconsin spring game, they still got a very good offensive line and probably one of the best running backs in the Big Ten and probably a top 10 running back in the country in Braylon Allen. This team, I think, adds another dimension. They can hurt you through the air with Tanner Mordecai bringing in some wide receivers in the transfer portal, but they also still got that identity. They're still also going to have a really good defense. So I'll go Wisco, I'll go Iowa. And now the next question, Dale, is there any other teams in this tier, or are we bumping down a tier here?
And I think the obvious two would be Minnesota and Nebraska.
I want to put them in this tier.
And that's fair. I think it's arguable. I think the problem with Minnesota is like we know what they're going to be. PJ Fleck is a great college football coach, but they don't have, to me, that potential that like a next gear to reach, if you will. I think they're going to be what they are, kind of that 7-win team. I don't see how they can get to that 9 wins. I think, frankly, there's an avenue for all 4 of those other teams if they have some things go right and some players play up to their potential. Those 4 teams can be 9-win teams. I don't necessarily see that ceiling from Minnesota. Having said that, like they obviously have a very high floor in a sense. So
yeah,
arguing them in Nebraska is hard because Nebraska, we've been saying for forever that they're going to be back. Matt Rule coming in now, I believe it. I believe in him. So I'm comfortable putting them ahead of Minnesota, but I know that's more your opinion. But
I
probably go Minnesota over.
That was a little bit of my cooking in there. I'll start with Minnesota. My takes on Minnesota. You just lose so much. Like you lose one of the best center in the country, John Michael Schmitz. You lose actually your whole interior offensive line. That's where it starts for Minnesota. It starts running the football with that offensive line and Mo Ibrahim. They don't have. There's the question marks on the offensive line. And there's question marks in the backfield. I like the transfers they brought in, but it ain't Mo Ibrahim. You also have question mark about the quarterback. And, I think the Greek rifle, as they call him in Minnesota, has a higher ceiling than – Tanner Morgan he is what he was. He was solid. The Greek Rifles got some
Minnesota.
traits. That being said, I got to see him put it together before I'm really like going to be super high on this Minnesota team. The defense is always like Joe Rossi does a better job than anybody in the country. Well, Phil Parker might have an argument with that. Ryan Walters might have an argument with that. But Joe Rossi does a great job in Minnesota. The reason I have him over, and we previewed this game. So Nebraska, Minnesota fans, go check that one out. I took Nebraska. Dill took Minnesota. Why I'm rocking with Nebraska is this is one of those teams, and we've said this last year, and we said it 2 years ago. On paper, the talent, they have the firepower to go 9 wins. Now they have a coach who's used to winning. And the culture, I hope, changed. Like you could tell I got some Kool-Aid on my shirt. Like I've been drinking the Nebraska Kool-Aid. I like what they have. I think this team is one of the more, if not the most, talented team in the Big Ten West. The reason I don't have them over Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa is because they're just a little bit more proven. But, man, Nebraska, that's another team that I think deserves to be on that tier because they got the talent. I think they got the coach. And we're going to see it all play out. But I think that's comfortably where I have, like, that next tier.
Yeah, and ultimately splitting those two teams are you a believer in potential or are you, like, proven? I don't know. That's probably how you're splitting that.
Yeah, and I've always leaned to the talent. Yeah, I've always leaned to the potential and the talent of a team. I think that, I mean, you take a look at teams that win the college football championship, the top teams, like they have the talent. And so that's why I'm leaning Nebraska. And quite frankly, I mean, Nebraska fans, you could get in my ear and tomorrow morning, if I get some comments from Nebraska fans saying, hey, Nebraska deserves to be that number 4 team in the Big Ten, like fire me up, go Big Red, I'll put them up there. Like that's how high I am on this Nebraska team. The next tier, I think there's a new tier. Where are we going with this next tier? I'm leaning Maryland.
I think it's Maryland and Purdue next. I think those two teams, again, Maryland, you kind of know what you're getting. I'm kind of waiting for them to break out, if you will. It's like they've played tough. They've played Michigan, Ohio State tough.
Brutal being in the Big Ten East.
It's just like they haven't quite gotten to that next level where it feels like they're kind of a favorite in a lot of Big Ten games they play, but they're right there. And I frankly think you can make a case for having them in that dark horse. I love that. I love that Talia is coming back and he's been there now for a long time. I'm just not sure across the board.
I'll throw a monkey wrench to this. You want to know why I don't have him as a dark horse team? They got Josh Gaddis calling the offense. I watched the spring game.
No, but that's going to be That's going to be the Loxley show. Everyone knows Loxley's going to be calling the plays.
All I'm going to say is Josh Gaddis was calling both of the offenses, and the score was, I believe it was 3-0 at halftime.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because it's the Loxley show. Yeah. He's the offensive guy. He's the head. He's the top dog in that room.
It wouldn't be a Big Ten pod, though, if I didn't throw a little Josh Gaddis dirt, though. Like, I kind of had to throw that in there.
But, like, I think Maryland's still good. They play those big teams tough, and then they lose stinkers. That's the weird thing about what Maryland does.
Yeah, and you have them there because they're going to be a competitive team. They banged with Michigan. They banged with Ohio State. Like they have the firepower. When you have a quarterback like Talia, you have the firepower. Now Purdue, like it's going to be such a change. Like you're going from Jeff Brom, spread him out. We're going to throw the ball all over the yard to Ryan Walters, where you're probably going to see a lot of the run game, and we're going to play defense. It's a true Big Ten West team with Ryan Walters taking over. I like Hudson Card. I just have some question marks about the talent around Hudson Card. And I mean, the defense, if Ryan Walters is calling the defense, like I'm a believe in the defense. I just don't know if they have the firepower on offense with around Hudson Card to really be like, okay, this team's going to go out and win 8-9 games early.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I do like essentially the skeleton that Jeff Brom built. That program is far better than I think people kind of perceive what Purdue is and when you think Purdue, what Purdue football. So I think they are moving in the right direction. I think they had a really good hire to replace Jeff Brom and Ryan Walters.
They crushed it, 100%.
He's going to be as hungry as anyone to prove himself and kind of get to that next step in his career. So I love what they did. I like what they're doing. I I think they lost too much to put them up in that next tier, but if I'm a Purdue fan, I'm a happy.
On a side note, like the Big Ten hires this offseason were phenomenal. Like Luke Fickell, Matt Rule, Ryan Walters, and we'll see what Northwestern does. But like those were some really, really good hires. I'm a fan of all of them. I just think the Ryan Walters one might take a year or two to really get off the ground. Dale, here's like the next big question. Like, what are we doing with the Michigan State Spartans? Are we keeping them in that competitive pack? Because I'm not.
I mean, for this year, I don't see an avenue for them being really tough. Like, I don't see how they're going to score a lot of points.
So many
I mean,
question marks.
unless Hauser or Kim is really, really good and way better than I kind of think.
But then
I
it's like
just
you have the question marks about like who's catching ball. Like I just don't like you lose Jaden Reed and Keon Coleman. The offensive line just like is what
not
it
good.
is. There's you look at that Michigan State team on the offensive side of the ball, like there's question marks, and then there's like not that much to be excited about. On the defense, I actually really like the front seven, and they got some young guys in the secondary. Like maybe that passing defense gets a little bit better. That being
Yeah, but
said,
that's a
like
huge concern still.
it's just like the concerns on top. Like there's one thing to have question marks. Question marks is not always a bad thing. It's just a question mark. Then there's like, okay, there's question marks with like not that much answers on the roster to look at. I think that's where Michigan State is, putting them in the middle of the road. And then Dale, there's I guess another question. Are you putting
No, Rutgers does not belong with those other two schools.
right
Rutgers,
here?
at least they're gonna fight teams. Like you kind of see that at times. Rutgers, yeah, they played Michigan for a half. They blocked a punt and scored, and they did their thing for a half of football. Like I think Rutgers at least has some competitive spirit in terms of what they do, and in the fight they're gonna show and enough talent to like mix it up with teams. I don't know what Northwestern Indiana are going to do, especially Northwestern. Like, I have no clue what that's going to
I
look
mean,
like.
To be honest, Northwestern would probably be the bottom. I maybe have them over Indiana before Pat Fitzgerald. And I guess I'll throw, I mean, like these teams are, these teams ain't going to win many games.
You can't have Rutgers with those two teams. Rutgers is better than that, I think.
All right, that's fair. I can get with that. Indiana, I'm doing some reading on them and going back. Like, there's just not. They did some stuff in the transfer portal, but that team was bad last year, and I don't see it really getting much better. And then Northwestern, with all that volatility, probably just in the bottom of the Big Ten
I
this
mean, they
year.
were the bottom last year. It's like I don't see how this gets.
I like this. This is about we didn't argue as much as I thought. And because again, I think part of it's just my mind's not made up. Like this dark horse category, like I agree all those 5 teams should be in that category. You could tell me whatever which way you wanted to stack those, and I probably wouldn't fight you that much on it.
I would agree, and it's tough. Like you just don't know enough what you're going to see from those 3 teams in the middle: Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin. It's like they all 3 have potential to be very good. I think you kind of know what you're getting with Illinois and Minnesota. I think Illinois' ceiling and floor are just a little higher. I think what they did last year and who they're getting back. But I mean, those 3 teams in the middle, if like Cade McNamara works out, for example, or Mordecai and Luongo works out, those teams have
Or if
like they
Nebraska
have much more
plays
firepower in a sense.
100%. That's why you have them up there. All right, that was less stressful than I thought. I thought we were really going to get into it. Not bad. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, let us know in the comment section how you stack these Big Ten teams. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.